Good day, good people. You're listening to Lifting the Veil. I'm your host, Carrie Lee. It's been quite some time since I have done a womb sauna show with my good friend, Melinda Ewell, also known as Thema. And today, she's back on the show to discuss our wombs and the relationship between that and our mothers, our relationships with our mothers and how they relate to our relationship with our womb. Good day, Thema. It's so good to have you back on the show, and I can't wait to get into this topic.
Absolutely. I love being able to work with you, Carrie, and just continue to reinforce how important it is that we as women and men address womb health together. And I'm really excited about today's topic, so I'm looking forward to it.
So am I. Now, what brought you to, as soon as you told me, and I'll have to tell the listeners, just to give you a quick, the date is the 9th of November, 2011, and it was a few weeks ago that Thema said to me, okay, I want to do the relationship between our moms and our wombs, and I went, oh, really? Because I have issues. I think we all have mama issues, but that being said, what brought you to this idea?
Well, what did I do? And when women get into the womb sauna and they start releasing and purging, I started noticing over the past month or so that there was a pattern where women were crying over their relationships with their mothers. And then it dawned on me that we really cannot heal our own wombs until we resolve the issues we have with the wombs from which we came. That is our first glimpse of, truthfully, God, nourishment, nurturing. When we're in that womb, the human brain, personalities, all of that develop while we're in the wombs of our mothers. And depending on how the dynamics of that relationship plays out throughout our lifetime, it can either help us be whole and balanced and loving on ourselves and loving in relationships, or it can teach us to be not trusting of people, to be resentful, etc. So when I saw that pattern that women were in a season of crying over the low parts or the painful parts of their relationships with their mothers, I said, I have to connect with Carrie, and we got to discuss this and discuss ways to overcome that and to heal from that. So
that's beautiful because, as you're talking about this, I can just nod and say, yes, I know. Yes, I know where I've learned these things. Yes, I know, I understand. So now what's the next step? What is your next step? What do you see? How do you see us resolving our issues with the relationship we have to our mothers and our womb? And what's your personal story?
Yeah. The first step is always awareness. That's the first step to change in any direction is awareness. And we tend to, as women, when we don't want to deal with something, we'll put it on the back burner, we'll sweep it under the rug, and then one day we look at it and it's a mountain. And so let me start with the relationship between me, my womb, and my mother. It's a very interesting story that I'm excited to share. My mother and I, very connected. If nothing else, I feel like her purpose, part of it anyway, was to be a mother because she was a phenomenal mother, and I give thanks to the Creator for that. Everybody can't say that about their mother. My mother truly, truly, truly is connected to her children and loves them deeply. And so I have a good relationship with my mom. That does not mean we did not have issues that need to be resolved within my womb. My womb was so connected to my mother that anything pertaining to my womb, she would feel. Okay?
Yeah,
and so when I was going into my adolescent years and I started exploring my sexuality, puberty kicked in, my mother was so intuitively connected that she would feel it. So when I decided I wanted to go ahead and explore my sexuality, my mother could sit down and say, "What you do today, honey?" And I think every woman can remember that moment when they decided to cross that threshold and say, I want to be sexual. And your mother, all of a sudden, they say your scent changes, your hips look different, and all of that. Mothers are intuitively connected. That's the first real memory most of us have of our mothers being connected directly to our wombs. Because that ties directly to your womb. That's your first time that you take ownership and say, I want to share my womb with somebody else. And we forget how intuitively connected our mothers were to that part of our womb. And so the connection starts even before then. Most of us just don't remember our mothers really responding to it until that moment. And so
I have an interesting... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I have an interesting story because as far as my mother, I don't know what connection I have to her. She was such a prude, and she was so closed off in that way and bitter that I don't know where my connection lied with my mother. We didn't have any of those discussions. And I was out of the house just before I turned 16. So before it went my sexual activity, there was no connection to my mom that way. Now with my daughter, something completely opposite. When she was born with pseudo-menstruation. Do you understand what that condition is?
No, break that down for me.
Okay, good, because a lot of people don't. When my daughter was born, she had, it's like a mucus that was discharging with small spots of blood in it, which scared the heck out of me. I had no idea what was going on. And the doctor described it, and this was a medical doctor describing it as your hormones crossed with her hormones as she was born. This will be about 12 days long. It could be shorter, it could be longer. There's no harm, she's fine. But ever since she was about 2 years old, about a week before I get my period, she acts funny. And it's been like that since she was 2 because I keep not a schedule, but I mark things on calendars just to, see the repetition and whatnot. And I see that my daughter and I are very connected womb-wise.
Okay. And all women and their mothers are. And that's the thing about it that we sometimes just don't even think about, because most of us aren't even thinking about managing our reproductive health at the level that I'm trying to educate women to manage it. So how our mothers play a part in it, we really have not thought about it. We haven't thought about how if we did not have the relationship we needed with our mother, we don't even recognize that repressed energy shows up in your womb on physical levels, shows up in your heart, shows up in your psyche when it comes to how do you really, really, really feel about your mother. So I started asking women a question, Carrie, in their sessions. I started saying, let's talk about it more. How do you really feel about your mother? Not just what do you know about your mother, not just what was your experience, but how do you really feel about your mother? Because if there's feelings that aren't healthy for you, it goes directly to your womb. That's our recording system. It goes directly to your breast, and that's the other piece. It goes directly to your breast. When women have maternal issues, they're usually having breast issues, either fibrocystic breast cancers, because the breasts represent the great mother. They represent the ability to nurture and those types of things. So that's why it's so important.
Yeah, it's so funny because while I was in this world of unforgiveness and anger and even hatred towards my mother, I'm an open book, so I have no shame with anything that I'm saying. When I was having horrifying cramps, my breath would be so sore every time I got a period. I mean, to the point where walking up and down stairs was painful. There was a point early this year, I guess late last year maybe, where I just finally let go of everything. I feel sadness towards her, and I wish her well, and I forgive her for everything because I understand so much more than I ever did. But I don't feel that angst and anger towards her. And since that change in me, all those problems that I was having, and it never clicked until you just said that. Because I'm trying to figure out why the last few times I've had my period, why hasn't it hurt to walk up and down the stairs, or why haven't I had that, doubled over in pain feeling? And maybe that's got a lot to do with it then.
Yeah, resolving those issues, absolutely. They directly correlate. And it's a heart matter. And see, there's a invisible, calling it an invisible thread between our heart and our womb. You know, when you have maternal issues that are not resolved, it's a heart matter. And so you got to resolve it. You have to resolve
Definitely.
it. You have to come to a place of peace and realize that even if your mother has shortcomings, let's say, you know, you didn't grow up with your biological mother, or, you know, even if that's the case, you still need that loving maternal energy in your life. That's what they call the yin and yang of the universe. You have the masculine energies and the feminine energies. You have the fatherly energies of the creator. You have the motherly ones. And as a culture, sometimes that gets shortchanged. You know, we don't talk about the divine mother, the sacred mother, and that feminine principle and energy, and how that can provide a lot of healing when you begin to acknowledge that, wow, even if my earthly mother could not do all that I needed to, that does not mean I was without a mother. You know, and then, so everybody has their views from that spiritual perspective, and I respect and honor all views. But I can tell you myself that in resolving the shortcomings that my mother had, my mother was very loving and all of that, but the flaw that impacted me the most was that she was a hoarder. And so I grew up in a home where I could not have friends come in. We could not visit because the house was packed to the ceiling, Carrie. I grew up not learning how to cook and do some of the things that our society typically say is the feminine thing to do, the role of the woman. I didn't learn all of that. And I didn't even have a real bed until I went to college. And that was my first mattress. And so when I got to college and realized how everybody else was living and how everybody else grew up, it was like a light bulb went off, or more like a bomb exploded. And this anger towards my mother, I mean, it was a rage that I just would flare up and got angry because I realized that, wow, my mom had this major flaw that impacted my brother and I in a severe way. And so what happened was I had to sit down with my mother and air it out. For me, that's what brought peace for me. Now, every woman, every person's going to have their own mechanism of peace. You know, you got to sit down and think about what will bring me peace about what I've experienced with my mom. But overall, the lesson I learned more than anything is that my mother truly loved me with the amount of love she had. And I had to release her from the resentment, from the anger, because it wasn't healthy for me. It wasn't healthy for me. But I had to address it. I had to address my feelings. I had to address how I felt about it in order to do that. I couldn't just sweep it under the rug. I couldn't just, every time somebody brought up my mom, just get mad and feel that tightening in my gut and that tensing up of my muscles and then just ignore it as if nothing is affecting me. Now you have to be truthful with yourself. And if you still feel some pain and you still feel some anger and resentment, you have to find healthy ways to address that and purge it and release it so that it's not taking and hiding itself in your body as dis-ease. Because that's exactly what happens.
No, definitely. Oh, I have a perfect example of that. Is there was all kinds of negativity and stuff coming in, and I ended up, my whole family ended up getting sick because we all allowed it to happen.
Wow.
We created this state of dis-ease in the house. It affected the children. It affected us. And we all ended up sick. I'm sure you can still hear it in my voice a little bit.
Yep. That's exactly what happens. There's a guy who, I don't know if you're familiar with him, Carrie, but I just recently found out who he is. But he has something called a cure drive that he does all throughout the world. And he's teaching people how to cure themselves of different things. And it directly correlates to some of the things we're talking about. But he did a video ebook of his tour across the world of teaching people, everyday people in the street, how to cure themselves from different things. And it was so simple. He was saying your body is so intelligent that it will give you signals of when you're heading in the right direction that creates wellness for you versus when you're heading in the opposite direction, which will bring illness and disease. And so he was walking on the street asking people a simple question: can you cure yourself? And everybody had the same response. Everybody got a tingling sensation in their finger. It was amazing because none of these people knew each other. You know, he's just doing a documentary of his experiences. And as of today, because he's teaching people to recognize the signals that your body will give you, something similar to what I do, what we talk about, you know. Right. He has over 63,000 testimonials of people curing themselves from diseases like herpes, cancers, depression, and anxiety disorders. I mean, all these testimonies, all because he taught people how to listen to their bodies. Isn't that amazing how intelligent our bodies are? And so when it comes to our relationship with our mothers, as soon as we bring up that topic, like you said, when I mentioned it to you, kind of like, oh, you know, that we really have to talk about this? Yes, really, we do. We do, because that was the signal that, okay, there's some things that have to be resolved. If we bring this up and people say, oh, that's the signal that something needs to be resolved.
Well, yeah, and our spoiled little brat attitude doesn't want to deal with it right now.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Emotions are they're tender. These are the tender spots, you know, because our mothers, when we think about mother energy, the maternal thing, you think of tenderness, you think of nurturing, you think of all of that. So if you didn't get that from your mother, it's tender. There's pain there. There's anger about that, because that's the natural rhythm of things. That's what we should get from our mothers. And so there's different things you can do. Everybody, there's lots of articles and resources on how you can start the process. Because it's a heart thing, if there is any unresolved anger, bitterness, resentment, I say the easiest way to address that is through meditation and prayer, you know, that quiet time. And you want to be equipped with things such as rose quartz or pink tourmaline if you're into stone energy. These stones are beautiful because they radiate love energy, and they help facilitate what you need to be able to really just forgive and release forgiveness and receive love and give it out. So as you're meditating and trying to purge and release these things, having those stones, you know, will help with that. Also, coming up with your own affirmation for yourself and your experience. So maybe some journal work needs to be done. We need to think about, what is the story between my mother and I? If I had to write it down. It doesn't have to be long to be a page, but what is me and my mom's story? Somebody was to interview us. What would we say about each other? You know, write it down.
It's like a journal. It's like the journal of your womb that we talked about in I think the first or second interview that we did together. The idea that we have to write a journal down of how you feel about your womb. It's no different than you should have. It's like you should almost have your own womb journal, and everything attached to your womb, your mother, your relationships, your outlook on yourself, your esteem. Everything should be connected in that journal. So all you women out there, go to the dollar store, go to a craft store, go to do whatever you have to do. If you want to make it pretty, if you want to keep it plain, whatever you want to do, this is a really good idea. I know that I have one that I've been keeping, and I've learned a lot about myself by writing things down that you wouldn't think it, just to think it over, but once you start doing it, you'll see the differences.
It is powerful. There's a book I journeyed through that really, it changed my life. I still honor this woman. Her name is Queen Afua, and that book is called Sacred Woman. And she's a powerful, holistic practitioner. Is just combating the womb crisis in ways that I just admire Carrie. So if I had to have my mentor, she would be kind of somebody I look up to in terms of the work I do. But she has a whole section dedicated to sacred relationships and dedicated to processing what your relationship with your mother has been like, how it's affected you. And there's a chant in there. It's a Kemetic chant, Abba en Mut'a, and it means my heart, my mother. And she just says, chant it. So I did this exercise, just chanting my heart, my mother, and just waiting to see what Spirit will bring to me concerning my heart and my mother. And it was so releasing. And while I would do this chant, I would make sure that I had my space where I couldn't be bothered, my phone couldn't ring, and, just giving myself the opportunity to really get the full benefit of trying to get still and figure out what's going on between me and my mother. Is it good? Is it bad? But I would chant. And she shares, and I would love to read this, she shares what came to her when she did this, and I'll share what came to me. So as she did this chant, this is what was given to her. Within your heart is your sacred mother. She sweetly sits and holds counsel. There she handles all matters of your heart. So come, Holy Mother, in prayer for the healing of hurt feelings and emotional disharmony and all of my relationships. Come for soothing, come for comfort, come for the wounds of my heart and scars that are ready for healing. Thought that was beautiful. So that's what came to her, and she shares that. What came to me was that my mother is love. She gave me the love she has, and I take the love she gave, and I leave everything else behind. I had to set up a divider.
Beautiful. That's beautiful, though.
Because our mothers, with all of their flaws, we are all here living in this flesh because of our mothers, because we were birthed from our mothers. And that in and of itself is love. Is love. Just that birthing process. If she couldn't give more than that,
indeed,
that you can take that and you can honor that, and celebrate that. But what no longer...
That was something that I was always completely aware of. Any time of strife with my mother, and there's been tons, I was always very grateful for the fact that she gave birth to me. I would send her a card on my birthday thanking her for my life. And that's something that a lot of people do. It doesn't matter what your relationship is with your mother, but to understand that she gave you life. She brought you into this world. I've birthed 2 children. I know what that is. I understand it. And it's a beautiful, amazing thing, and something that I'm so grateful to have been able to do myself. I'm thankful to my mother.
Yeah. Yes. There's a lesson with every relationship. Every relationship is going to bring different things into your life. Some bring a lot of joy. Some bring pain. Some bring, different things. But each relationship will serve its purpose. And I truthfully am at a point in my life where I can honor every relationship I've had. I can honor it. And the things that no longer serve a purpose in my life, I funeralize them. I funeralize them, whether that's through I create my own little rituals, and I lay them to rest. I don't continue to give life to them. Where energy goes, the power flows. So why continue to put my energy into the past pain? Just so that it can be magnified? No, it's time to let it go, to acknowledge the truth of what happened, and to honor the parts of that experience that have helped make you the powerful, wonderful people, we are today. And the things that we don't need anymore, funeralize it. Put a eulogy over it. Just let it be. Lay it to rest. Put a benediction on it. So,
yeah. Stop scratching at it. Stop irritating it.
Yeah, a lot of women that I work with who do have issues with their mother, they also tend to have self-esteem issues. Okay. And so by acknowledging, and most of them are aware that they have self-esteem issues, and as they begin to share with me why they have the current self-esteem issues, it always tends to stem back to the issues they have with their mother. So it's almost as if that experience, that bad experience with their mother, has become a crutch for why they are functioning the way they are today. And I have to tell them in as much love as I can that regardless of what your mother did or did not do, that was over 20 years ago. That was over 10 years ago. And so you have to start stepping outside of that experience and standing in your power to change how you treat yourself. Because she's not the one now calling you bad names. She's not the one now, not loving on you. Because you're grown now. So you have to take responsibility for how you love on yourself. And as you start to love yourself more, you'll be able to release your past experiences. So it's a journey, and it takes work.
Yes, it is.
It takes work, but it's worth it.
Well, that's the thing. Nothing worth having is easy to achieve. But it's the journey to getting there that is just so completely worth it. I mean, if you want to sit there and bottle up everything and just pretend like it never existed, well, then you're going to suffer all the consequences of that decision. But if you're constantly working towards making yourself better, healing yourself, finding out the reasons, not blocking things off, you're going to be rewarded because you are tending your own garden.
Yep. Planting your seeds, watering it. And, while you go through the process, things that make it easier that most of us may not even think about, but it's simple things. Like I mentioned the rose quartz, breathing, as you start remembering certain memories and you feel the tightness, become very aware of your body. Breathe through. Breathing is so healing. So just take deep breaths, pause. If you need to take a break, come back to it. That's good. Don't wear dark, depressing colors while you're trying to do your heart healing work. Wear the white colors, wear the soft pinks, wear the baby blues, the pastel colors to keep things bright while you go through your valley and come out of it. You're going to come out of it,
I was going to ask you now, would you relate a lot of this to chakra then? If you look at your chakra, your sacral is orange. So that would be your womb. And oranges and yellows, your red is your grounding. But your sacral is orange. It's a very bright, vibrant color. While you're I don't know, I'm not the expert, but I mean, I would personally think that orange would be something that I would be wearing a lot of while I was trying to figure out what was going on with myself womb-wise.
Mm-hmm. Womb-wise, definitely. Maternal work, resolving things with your mother, is a heart chakra work.
And your heart's green.
Your heart is like that green and pinks. That's why I said the rose quartz. Those love stones really help clear that energy out. Like if you hold the rose quartz over your heart while you're talking, praying, meditating, and then I've even taught women to lay on their back with their knees up and put the rose quartz right over their womb, and let it go. And the testimonials I get, Carrie, are beautiful. Women, when they start doing that rose quartz heart healing work, and I tell them to wear like pinks or whites while they do it, they're like, oh my goodness, the vibration, the sensations. And then at the close of it, if spirit speaks to you and you find that peace as you journey through that work, switch to clear quartz. Because as the love fills up in you, the clear quartz will magnify that love. So the rose quartz will clear it out, it'll pull it out, and it'll transmute that energy into that loving God energy. And then the clear quartz will magnify it. Yes. So it's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful process.
For sure. I like to keep my, depending on my feeling of the day of what I need, when I have a stone that I need to keep close, usually I put a quartz crystal, a rose quartz, right in my left bra. Mm-hmm. And that's close to my heart, and it does wonders. Walking around with a piece of rose quartz, and I mean, what more perfect place than to place it into the left side of your bra, right?
Yep. And the left side of the body is the feminine side. Your left side is your feminine side, your right side is your masculine side. So I see this play out in the womb sauna all the time. When I get women talking about their mothers, sometimes their left side will go numb. Sometimes they'll get little muscle spasms, and I'm like, yeah, we're talking about your mother. We're talking about that feminine energy that was supposed to be a positive ruling presence in your life growing up. So yeah, your left side is your feminine side. So that putting that rose quartz right under in your bra on the left side, that's beautiful. It's a perfect spot for it. That loving energy.
For sure, for sure. Now, give me some examples of what you see happening with people, because maybe they're saying, oh yeah, well, we all have our own mama issues, but we get over them. But are there some examples you can touch on of situations, no names obviously, and a lot of vague stuff, but how you've seen this better other women that you've been helping to heal?
Yeah, I have. It's so powerful. I have one woman whose story really, really moved me because, like I said, I have a different story about my mother. Everybody doesn't have my story, and everybody had pretty stuff and just little few bad things. But her mom has been such a negative influence in her life that she really felt like it was cursing her life. Anything positive she tried to do, and she's educated, got degrees, and all of that, and so there's a lot that her mother could celebrate about her life, but all her mother would say is nothing but negative things to her. Never showed her affection. Till this day, Carrie, still just very negative, and the things that her mother would say would come to pass in her life, the negative things. So, like, for example, when she was having her first child, it was, you're going to have a C-section like me, and I hope that child brings you as much pain as you brought me, and showing up, her labor and all this stuff was very, very challenging, all of that. So I'm listening to her share her story about her mother, and the question came to me, okay, how does one get this much power in your life? And it's a generational thing. Her mother hated her. Her grandmother hated her mother, and so it's not something new to their family. But I said, how did she get the ability to have as much power through her words in your life? And she's looking at me like, what do you mean? Carrie, my life coach, his name is Dr. Reginald Walsh, powerful man, and he said to me one day, everything we experience in this life we attract unto ourselves. We may not always be conscious of it, but we're magnets out in this grand universe, and we attract different things into our life. And he actually had a guy in a session with him talking about molestation and stuff who tried to fight him over this statement. You mean to tell me I attract that into my life? He was not happy to hear that. And so I started thinking about how can I apply this lesson, these words of wisdom that he gave me to this particular woman. Make a long story short, I shared with her. At the end of the day, the only thing that is hereditary, and this is my truth, the only thing that is hereditary is behavior. If we behave emotionally, spiritually, physically the same way as our mothers, etc., then we're going to get the same results. So when your mother spoke these things to you, so let me ask you a question. Did you believe her? And she got real quiet.
Of course.
I said, you gave her the power. You gave her words that power. So I said, let's start taking it back. So what was the last thing your mother said to you that hurt you? And she shared that. I said, let's start taking that power back. Is that truth for you? No, that's your mother's truth, so let her keep that truth. And you stand in yours. Because your words over your life are more powerful than anything your mother's ever spoken over your life. And that's that self-love piece that I was speaking earlier. And she's been doing the work. I've been working with her for a couple of weeks now, and she'll email me. We'll check in with each other, and she'll say, Thema, thank you so much for that truth. It really helped me to start standing in my power. I don't have to just let my mother's words rule my life. I can speak my own words, and they can rule my life.
That's great. That's beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny because, I'm listening to the story, and I'm going, Oh, geez, eh? Because, yeah, it was all those things that my mother said to me that, and all those ways that and I've been fighting it forever. One of the things that my mother was very much closed off body-wise. I didn't get much in the way of, not even the story of the birds and the bees so much as to my periods, my anything. If she was naked, she would cover herself up really quick, like it was some kind of, it was just wrong. When I went to breastfeed my daughter, she was appalled at the idea that I was going to allow that to happen because that was somehow disgusting. And I was just, and I just looked at her and I said, I always felt this way. I always felt pity to my mother. And that's my biggest thing. She would say things to me and I'd be like, you're so wrong. Ever since I was very young, I don't know that I gave her the power, but her words were still painful.
Yeah,
because I never believed what she was saying. I didn't believe that I should be covering up my body the way that she was, not around her. Not,
right.
And now with my daughter, I'm very free with her in a way that I've always, if she walks into my bedroom and I'm getting dressed, I've got the same parts as she's going to have one day. Like we have the same parts. We're the same. There's no reason for me to hide around her. As a family, I'm not going to say we all walk around naked because that's not it, but we're not shy about our bodies. I want them to love themselves. I don't want them to feel shame because you know what, I'm lying if I say that it never affected me negatively, because in all honesty, there were years where I felt shame about my body, and I don't think it was until I had a daughter of my own I realized that I could not put that shame onto her. I couldn't let her feel that type of shame. It's not fair. It's not right. It's not something that should be done.
No, it's absolutely true. And that's the thing, the pain that we've experienced, at some point it's my hope that everybody who's experienced some kind of pain from their mother can turn that into power. Because without feeling that pain, like listening to you, Karen, this is so beautiful because even though you would have rather not have experienced that with your mother, look at what it's done for your daughter.
Definitely.
You know what I mean? So there's always the light and the dark side to everything, and we got to embrace that that's just a natural pattern in life. You're going to have light and darkness. You can't even appreciate the light unless you see what darkness is.
Yeah.
So that's the natural pattern of life.
I have a quote to share. John had brought me a book. It's called You Own the Power by Rosemary Altia. And I never actually got through the entire thing because I get a lot of, I just got a lot of what I needed very quickly from it. And I use it as a book that I leaf through kind of type thing. But the very first thing she says is, to my mother who bore me, finally I offer my thanks, thinking of her with great sadness, knowing that her negativity brought her terrible misery. By her example, I learned how not to be. Through her example, I gained my strength. When I read those words, I found peace because I was able to put into context that, yes, I am grateful for her showing me how I didn't want to be, for seeing what the negativity she spawned created for herself and for others, for understanding how I don't want my daughter to feel ever. I still battle with things because you do have those hereditary things that you have to outgrow. Those mannerisms and certain things that you're holding on to. It's not easy, but you can't, and you could just slough it off and continue and pretend like it doesn't exist. But for me and for many other women, we don't think that way. We don't want the vicious circle to keep on repeating itself and repeating itself. We want to be able to break that cycle and start a new freer way for ourselves and our children.
Yep. It's so necessary. Some people are even of the belief, Carrie, that we choose our parents. You know, when we decide that we're ready to be born, that I want that person to be my mother. And one of my clients shared with me her journal work about trying to get to the root of why did I choose my mother and my father. And it's been a beautiful involvement for her of trying to answer that question and seeing how having them as parents has made her the woman that she is today. And I want to state this. It's kind of like a challenge. It's going to sound real pretty, but when you start having to walk this out, it can be challenging. The same way we are learning to accept the love that our mothers are able to give us and was able to give us. Now we should give our mothers the love we have within us.
Definitely. And, you know, this needs to be said, too. I'm estranged from my mother. But I don't have to see her or physically touch her in order to give this to her. I can just send her my love energy.
Absolutely.
That's all that needs to be done. It's just a mere act of forgiveness within yourself. And I mean, look at all the people who meditate and send their energies off to Fukushima and off to this and that and the other, and, you know, trying to send healing out. We can do this to our mothers too. Absolutely. And there's no excuse for saying, well, no, I'm not going to do that. You don't have an excuse. If you're ready to meditate for the world, you have to be ready to meditate for yourself first. And in helping yourself, you'll find that forgiveness and sending love out to those people that have hurt you or that you don't have resolved issues with, you're going to heal yourself.
Yep. Because when you harbor that resentment, if you say, I can't even do that, it's too painful for me to send my mother any loving energy. And some people, it can be at an energetic level, spiritual level. Some people need to actually go sit down with their mother and spend some quality time. You know, everybody's story is different. But if you can't get to that point, it has nothing to do with your mother. It has to do with you needing to love yourself more. Because at that point, you're comfortable with harboring disharmony within yourself.
And that,
as subtle as it may feel.
I've been there.
Yeah.
I've absolutely been there. Years ago, I was content, and the very thought of speaking about my mother would bring on this big rant, this big, long, poor me thing, where, you know, all the blame goes on her and yada, 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 and it's very unhealthy. It really is very unhealthy. And I was lucky enough that she contacted me a couple years ago. And we started to bond. And I was under this, I did make like a demand that I was not going to, she's never met my children. She's only had seen my daughter when she was 10 days old. So when we were going through that whole pseudo-menstruation experience, which was really freaky for your first child and not understanding. But regardless, I brought her back into my life, and with a few stipulations. You won't meet my children until I know that you're stable. And when this didn't work this time, because it didn't, I was able to let go. I was able to understand that whatever she's going through, it's no fault of mine. I feel horrible for her. And that idea of sending out love to them, it really does help you. Because you're doing your part to try and help them to heal themselves. Whether it's working or not, sometimes we'll never know. But the mere fact that you're doing it is so important.
Yeah, it really is. It's really important. And that's why I wanted Carrie the opportunity to talk about this, because, I mean, I know we're talking about it from the female perspective, but even for our men, if there's any men that, you know, will be listening, it's important that you resolve any issues you may have with your mother or anybody, all relationships that, you know, may have been painful or brought discontent. You got to resolve it. And there's different rituals. We made a few suggestions here on the interview, but spend some quiet time with yourself and ask yourself the question, what will bring me peace about this situation and this experience. And write it down and create your peace. That's how powerful you are. You're not powerless, you're powerful. You can create peace out of the worst situation. It could have been that your mother was beating you. It could have been that you were sexually abused. It could be anything, but you can still stand in your power and your truth and create something beautiful out of your life story concerning your mother and your father and your parents and all of that. So a lot of people try to deny their heritage, but that's not possible. It's in your DNA. It's in your bloodline. So find the good pieces in your bloodline and keep that and discard the rest.
It's so true. It's so funny because I used to joke around and tell everybody that I was hatched. And I apologize to all those listeners if you're thinking that I'm getting some kind of free therapy out of this. Maybe I am, and it's all good. I'm just sharing because it's all I have to reference to is my own personal experiences. And this is something that's very important to me. I'm always led to do these interviews that are important to me because I just feel that I have to keep that energy going. So if anybody thinks, never mind, I'm not explaining myself. I don't need to.
It's fine, Carrie. Your story is a blessing to hear. And I'm sure that there's plenty of people listening who need to hear your story. So don't ever feel like you have to apologize for sharing your story.
I just feel compelled to because I can relate to this so very much. I really comprehend the dynamic between mother and daughter. My biggest fear for the longest time was having that same relationship with my daughter. I don't want that. And I found that the more I feared it, the more I almost made it happen. And my struggles with my daughter were coming from that fear that I was going to have the same as I had with my mother. You have to be so very careful with what you think because your thoughts become your reality.
It's so true. Where the energy goes, the power flows. So if you're putting energy into the fear, it magnifies the fear. And that's what manifests in your life. That's what will show up. And so you're so right, Carrie. You got to be very clear with your intentions because the universe will respond to what you intend. And if all you can think about is the negative stuff, the negative things will continue to show up. But there's so much positive that you can focus on. So you're right. You got to be very clear with your intentions and what you want to duplicate and what you don't.
Yeah, I'm seeing a quote that came up, and of course everything comes up at a certain time for a reason. Mm-hmm. And I was just saying, I was fighting so hard to not be something, to not create this. And it's not about, you don't fight what it is, you just become what it's not. Mm-hmm. There's no fighting to be something different. You just be the opposite of what you don't resonate with.
Mm-hmm. And for anybody who can relate to that fear of not wanting to be your mother, like I shared that I grew up with a mom who had a hoarding problem, and if I had held that against my mother, I would have never got to the root of how it even was created, And just to share really quickly, my mother used to be known as the woman in our neighborhood who had the best house in the entire neighborhood. And there was a man who came and knocked on our door who had, she knew, and she let him in, and he raped her. And the entire time that he raped her, he said, "Your house is so beautiful." Mm. And that is how her hoarding manifested. Then after he was finished, he wanted to go upstairs and cause harm to her children. And my mother wasn't having that. And so they fought, and she won. And he lost his life. She had amnesia about it. Oh, and the amnesia lasted for years. So while she was packing out this house, all she knew was, I'm protecting my children, but she couldn't remember why. Okay? So as my brother and I would ask questions, "Mom, why can't we live differently?" She couldn't really answer it because she forgot the trauma. It wasn't until she went into therapy years later, Carrie, I was in college, when her memories came back of how that house, it was literally, she felt like one day she opened her eyes and said, who did this to this house? Like, it was an aha moment for her. I took the time to love my mother throughout my anger. I said, Lord, despite how angry I am, I want to be able to show more love than anger towards my mother. And I still want us to be able to have a healthy relationship. Right. And if I had not done that, I would have never got to the root of why it was even what it was. And now that I understand it better, I don't have to have anger or resentment. She literally was doing the best that she could do. You know, and I'm at peace with that. I'm at peace with that. And so for some of us, you know, we don't even understand the story. And that's important because come to find out, a lot of women in my family have had to deal with sexual traumas and things like that. So, you know, these patterns, this information is valuable to me because I want to know what kind of energy gets thrown at the women in my, I want to know that, especially when I have my daughter. And, you know, I want to know that so that I know what I'm dealing with. You know, so I share that to say I'm not my mother. I'm not my mother. I had to go through my purging process. There would be times I would come home after leaving my mother's house, and it could be 2 o'clock in the morning, Carrie, and I'm vacuuming.
Yeah.
And my mate was like, are you serious? What's wrong? And I'm just in tears, like, I just don't want to be my mother. I'm just cleaning every corner, you know, obsessing over corners and stuff. And I had to confront my fear and stand in the truth that I am not my mother. I literally had to look in the mirror some days and say, you are not your mother. You may look just like her, but you're not your mother. You are your own woman with your own truth, your own views, your own way of managing things. You don't have to adopt the things of your mother.
No, and it's hard sometimes, and your eyes play tricks on you, and your mannerisms play tricks on you. Sometimes I'll look in the mirror quickly, and I see her. Oh my goodness, do I see that woman? It really does throw me off, and unfortunately, I still have that little bit of bitterness that I'm still letting go of. I am a being that is completely imperfect, but I'm always trying, you know. And I can admit to my flaws, and I do still hold. I can't say that I'm perfectly fine with it. I've let go of a lot, and I've made peace with a lot. But there are still things that I am still letting go of. It's just the way that it is. When your eyes play tricks on you, and I'm trying to enforce this within myself, but to get this through to myself that, listen, honey, you don't have to feel bad about the her in you that you see. You don't have to relate it to the negative. Try and remember that good stuff, because maybe as few and far between as some of that good stuff is, it still is, and there's a reason why she is the way that she is. You know, there is a reason why my mother is the way. I can remember, and I was just sharing this with somebody the other day. She's neurotic. She would go every single night after dinner, every single night. We had this huge house. They were the Keeping Up with the Joneses type of family. They would buy a house and then turn it over for a profit, or build a house and turn it over for a profit. And their last home was like a $380,000 home. And it destroyed the marriage, basically. I mean, it was just, it's one of the markers in my mind anyway. And she would make me vacuum the entire first floor, like the living floor where the kitchen and the dining room and the living room, and the entire floor every single night. Now, for what purpose, I have no idea, but she was one of those white glove mothers. I had a bedroom that was never mine. Every single piece of clothing was put into the drawers perfectly. My closet was color coordinated. I went off years later to work for the Salvation Army clothing department and had a fit because they wanted to have me color code absolutely everything. That was really traumatic for me to have to do. I know it sounds ridiculous, but to go from, like literally my mother had picked the color on my wall, the blanket that was on my bed, the wallpaper she put up, the knickknacks it was not my room. So if you come into my house now, even still today, my room is completely my room. It's John's as much as it is mine, don't get me wrong. But my side of the bed is full of clutter, and I still have a couple drawers where I just shove everything in and don't care. You know, that reverse psyche thing.
Yep.
I have to get over those things.
Yeah,
but these are little idiosyncrasies that I still have. As we're having the show, I can see that. Yeah, I haven't come out unscathed.
Mm-hmm. And it's not even, and sometimes, truthfully, Carrie, it's not the goal to get rid of the scars. It's to be able to find peace when you look at it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when you see, I was scarred this way, and you say, okay, yeah, that hurt, but the scar isn't still sore, it's just there, you know, and still have peace about it. And not feel like you have to retreat into the old emotions and the old mechanisms we used to do as the children who were unhappy with certain things. No, I have new things. I have new tools at my disposal that I can use when I see that scar. You're going to see it. And you know what? One day, you might be surprised. Your daughter might ask you, I see this scar. What's that about? And you'll be able to share how you went through certain things, but you stood in your power. You were able to give love. That story is for a reason. So it's not going to ever disappear. So, yeah, you might still have some scars. You might still have some moments where you have to step back and say, okay, how do I want to handle this? You know, but overall, over time, as you heal, as you create more harmony within yourself, and this is for all of us, you know, what happened over time is you'll begin to notice more harmony in terms of your relationship to your mother than disharmony.
Oh, definitely.
The perception changes, how you tell the story changes, and I have to share this. One of my clients is a radical forgiveness coach, and when I was giving her session, I asked her, I said, if there's anything I can share with my other clients about radical forgiveness, what would you have me share? Oh, this almost brought me to tears. She said, you know when you've really achieved forgiveness, when the story changes from what happened to you to what happened for you. And it was just like I shed 15 pounds. It's the simple things for me, Carrie, that have the greatest impact in my life.
Oh, it's
just
true.
Changing the story from this is what happened to me to this is what happened for me. It's so powerful. So we can change the stories about the touchy parts of our mothers to this is what happened to me. Listen to how you tell the story. That is going to be the clear sign of where you are in relationship to your story.
That makes so much sense.
And what happened to me and not for me, that means that you got to spend more time changing the story, the dynamics of it, you know?
Yeah, and it's funny, too, because it comes back to that idea of some people to believe that we pick our parents. I'm a firm believer of that. I've gone through everything I've gone to bring me to where I am today. I wouldn't change a thing. There's nothing I would change. Well, I chose my mother for a reason so that I could overcome all those obstacles. I chose my father for a reason so I could overcome all those obstacles and find peace in it.
Yep. And we don't just live for ourselves. You know, when I come across women who have, different rifts with their moms and stuff, because I've experienced that, I know what it's like to gain peace. I can share that. Nothing, I know for a fact I don't live just for me. That's why I'm so transparent. That's why I'm so honest and open, because I don't feel like I have the patent on living or, my life story and what I've experienced can be a blessing to others, can shine light on different ways of coping with different things, and I celebrate that, and I don't have a problem sharing that. And that's why I said, Carrie, when you shared your story earlier, please don't ever hesitate, because I get a blessing out of listening to your story. So I want to hear it.
We're all learning from each other.
Yep, it blesses me. So if nothing else, above all else, I would hope that people hear this and what they get from it is, it's time for me to create more peace. And I can do that through meditation, prayer, journal work. Maybe I need to have a conversation with my mother. That was one of the best things I ever did. And some people, especially if they're a little bit up in age, will probably call this disrespectful. But the best thing I did in college concerning my mother was cuss her out. I had to get the anger out. I not in a disrespectful way, but I'm angry and how could you and blah, blah, blah. You know, I was just so hurt when I got to college and realized people had beds and I didn't. You know, it was just the simple things for me. It was traumatic for me. And my mother was able to hear and listen. And she took it, and I knew it hurt. She took it, but then we changed it. We both made an effort to change it into something different. Everybody may not have that kind of mother. But for those who do, honor that. Honor the listening ear of your mother if there's unresolved issues. Don't keep it in. If you wish that mom had talked to you more about your sexuality, honor that. Talk to mom and say, hey, I wonder why you didn't. Maybe you'll find stuff out about your family that you didn't even know. You know, so, and for those who don't have a mom with a listening ear, honor yourself, honor your healing process, and create your peace. Create your peace. Yep.
Definitely. No, that's so well said, and that's exactly the point of what we need to be doing, is creating our peace. And we can't rely on anybody else to do it for us.
Nobody else. Nobody else. Yep.
No, definitely not. Now, I'd like to let the listeners know once again, you've been listening to Lifting the Veil, and I am, as always, your host, Carrie Lee. Thema, you're going to be coming on hopefully more often so that we can really get down and work on the womb sauna and having these calls, because the first two that I had, I got a fantastic response from people. And then I kind of got caught up in my little hiatus and then into, you know, the whole sovereign issue that everybody sees that I'm dealing with. But at the core and first and foremost, I am a woman. Mm-hmm. And I am moved so deeply to share everything that I talk to Thema about. And everything that she has to share with us is something that I have been inspired to share with all of you. So we're hoping for once to twice a month to be gathering together to be able to do these shows for the good people, yes?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And thank you, Carrie, for the forum. I love what you're doing. I love the impact you're having. And I truly view you as a woman who is also advocating against the sin crisis because it's so prevalent in every culture. The entire world right now, you have women suffering emotionally, suffering physically, suffering spiritually. And every little effort helps. So I'm glad that you're doing this, and I'm glad that we found each other to partner in this way. This is going to be so impactful. It already is. So thank you.
Oh, definitely. I am grateful for you too, sister. I'd like to remind everybody to connect with Mother as much as you can. And now I'm talking about the womb that we're all sitting upon right now, the earth. Because a lot of our problems do also come from the disconnect that we have to her. And as much as our own mothers are important, the relationship that we have with the Mother Earth is also extremely important too. So I'd like everybody to really stop and meditate on that for a bit, because we have our physical mothers, but the earth is incredibly important, and being connected to her is important. We were coming back from a trip over the weekend to visit friends, and my daughter and I were looking out and seeing in the cities how people just live on top of each other, and there's no connection to earth, there's no connection to Mother. So as we are talking about our mother issues, that's a big one too.
Mm-hmm. It's huge. Huge.
It really is.
And I call myself an earth baby. I've been playing in dirt and hugging trees for as long as I can remember. And, you know, I really love the earth. the rhythm of the earth. I love to go sit my womb, my sacred seat, directly on the earth and the grass, and, to reconnect, to get grounded. And that's why I do a lot of my rituals for healing and peace outside with the earth, because I like that rhythm. I like the energy. I like all of that. And so I'm glad you mentioned that. We have to do better in reconnecting with our Mother Earth. So important. And teaching our children to do that as well. There's a great book called Celebrating the Great Mother. And so for all of you who have children, it's a wonderful resource to teach you how to teach your children to connect with the earth and different rituals and stuff they can do to honor the earth. We got to bring that knowledge back. We got to bring it back.
I couldn't agree more. All right, well, I think for today's show, that's about it. Once again, you've been listening to Lifting the Veil. I am your host, Carrie Lee. I've been joined by Melinda Ewell, also known as Thema, my beautiful sister that I am so grateful for. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Until next time, everybody, much love.